You're listening to Torah with Simcha. Just before Pesach, about a day or two before Pesach, I found out that one of my Rebbeim from Epstein Hebrew Academy was nifter. His name is Rav Chaim Yosef Herber Zatzal. I thought it would be nice, more than just nice, I think it's very important that we say words about him, to speak about the role that he played and the assets that he brought to the team of chinuch within the Epstein Hebrew Academy community, and also the assets that he brought to the Agudah, also regarding chinuch in the St. Louis community. I was a student of his in Epstein Hebrew Academy for 2 years, 4th grade and 6th grade. He taught every subject, the only Rebbe I ever had that taught every subject in Limudei Kodesh: Chumash, Parshas Vayishlach, Navi, Sefer Yehoshua, Halacha, Hilchas Pesach. I have a clear memory of him purchasing beautiful Kiddush cups for anyone who did not have a Kiddush cup. And then Gemara, Hameniach Esakad, Baba Kama, when we got into the 6th grade, when I was in 6th grade. I also learned with him privately on the side on Sundays through 8th grade, I believe. That was through 8th grade. That was one-on-one. And he was also mashpia me during the time, although it was brief, during the times I spent at the Agudah. The times I spent at the Agudah really, number one was Yamim Noraim every year from 4th grade onward for the remaining of my elementary school years. So that's 4th through 8th grade. And those were also the years that we sat next to Rabbi Herber and there was interaction. I remember him testing me on what some of the words meant. The end of the Ne'ilah davening on Yom Kippur. And with him, as everyone knows, the words had to be translated to the very exact. And we had a vocabulary test every single day in 6th grade, every single day on 13 words, more or less. Examples, I remember the word ha. The word ha meant that. And it had to be translated as that. Otherwise, it's marked wrong. Any word that's marked wrong is wrong. You could show him a dictionary that shows that you're right and the grade should be changed. But he said the only dictionary that he is mevatel his das to is Jastro. It's just a classic Rabbi Herbert thing to do. Because Jastro his translations are not controversial at all. It's probably the best dictionary. But some of the yeshivas do make you rip out the first 5 pages due to some apicorsis or heresy that may be within the first 5 pages, and some people prefer not to use them. In fact, at the Agudah in St. Louis, many of the Jastros were stacked behind the corner by Rabbi Frank, the opposite side of where Rabbi Herber sat, and it was almost like a joke. Rabbi Herbert would send people over there to go and get the Jastro. So he was a big fan of the Jastro. There's some other things he was a very big fan of, which we will discuss in this episode. I heard the words Derech Eretz Kadma Torah more often from him than from any other Rebbe that I had. I heard Baruch Hashem. When he asked you how you were doing, if you said fine, he would say very fine. You'd say very fine. Say very, very fine. Say okay, very, very fine. It would keep going until you said Baruch Hashem. Once you said Baruch Hashem, you'd say, oh, thank you. That's what he wanted to hear. The joke is sometimes a person wasn't doing fine. They had strep throat. You're not doing fine. I can't. Baruch Hashem. He wanted to hear Baruch Hashem. Those were the words that we were to use. The phrase Derech Eretz Kadma Torah, he would usually let the student finish off that final word. Derech Eretz Kadma Torah. There was Toiras Hashem. I don't remember all of the phrases exactly. You will not see a milchamta shel Torah unless Rabbi Herber's there. At least in those days, we didn't have a lot of kollel people back then. And Rabbi Herber's the one who started the whole thing. And the reason why that's so important, especially nowadays, is because, first of all, you see how it's nothing personal, despite the fact they're attacking each other. Sports, they'll fight. You have, the Empire called the wrong shot. There's going to be a fight. There's going to be so you get the feeling in the world that we live in, sports starts to feel real. Politics starts to feel real. So if Torah is not like that, if we do not have milchamta shel Torah, then we don't have anything to fight those kash'yas back. So by him being there, and this is true in almost every makom Torah, the chiddush by St. Louis is that it was not Lakewood. It was in the middle of the country, far away from everything. But because of his presence, we had that. Even a child could appreciate something like that. Walking in, attention grabbing, much more than just someone giving a drasha. It looks a lot more real when you have that type of a discussion. He added a lot, and at one point, I remember Rabbi Greenblatt even said, we should call this. No, he's not sleeping yet. We should call this the Herber Greenblatt show, and it was almost like entertainment, but it added a lot. A certain type of midah ha'emes with an accountability that, first of all, created an awareness of a lack of Emes in things that one wouldn't even be aware of ordinarily. An awareness that, like what they just did, they didn't even realize, but they thought they didn't do anything wrong, but really they did. He could point out how there was a lack of honesty. And secondly, there was an accountability. So let me give you some examples. And before I do, though, I'm just going to say the main message always was derech eretz kadma Torah. I probably heard that phrase more often from him than any other Rebbe I ever had. And whenever a student would misbehave, there would be a whole discussion, and he would say, remember, derech eretz kadma Torah, derech eretz kadma Torah. So this comes first. Derech eretz means having good midos, that comes before Torah. So before we learn Torah, first there has to be derech eretz. I remember someone was once benching. So people bench by heart. Sivi, do you bench by heart? All right, so someone was benching by heart. Fine. Someone was benching by heart, and it was Rosh Chodesh. So the guy was done benching, and Rabbi Herber said, did you finish benching? And he said, yeah. This was a very sharp kid, actually. He said, yeah, I finished benching. He's like, you know the whole thing by heart? And he said, yeah. You know Yalav Yavo by heart? And he said, yeah. And this is before, by the way, this is before there ever was a song for Yalav Yavo. So, Tzivya, are you listening? So Rabbi Herber said, okay, I'm going to take out a bencher and let's hear you. So on the spot, the bachur was tested to see if he knew Yalav Yavo by heart. And about like 10 words in or 11 words in, he wasn't able to say the next word. It says, well, you told me you knew Yalav Yavo by heart. So do you know it by heart or do you not know it by heart? He said, well, I thought I knew it but you don't know it by heart. So how did you finish benching if you don't know it by heart? And he said, well, I thought I knew it, but you don't know it by heart. But the conversation would be like, it would go on for 10 minutes, until finally he'd say, I guess I have to bench again. Oh, thank you. You have to bench again. Okay, fine. So that was a 10-minute conversation, and now he has to bench again. Now, the victim, quote unquote, there was no selection on who the victim could be a Rosh Hashiva. It wasn't like only fourth grader. If it was a Rav in the shul, the Rav in the school who also benched by heart, Rabbi Herber did the same thing to him. It was, the benching by heart? That Rav was like, yeah, let's hear. There was no discrepancy, that's the right word, between one or the other. So everybody was treated fairly. He was very fair. He was the most fair Rebbe. Everybody was treated fairly. And to a lot of people, that was an inspiration. The inspiration is that Torah is Emes. It doesn't matter the person's status. It doesn't matter. This is the way it is. It also could be entertaining for children. And sometimes we try to be cute to get kids into it. But here you see it's both. You're killing two birds with one stone. You're being cute. You're getting kids into it. But you're also showing Torah achasi. And we're all avadim, and we all do the same types of things. And that was one. What? No one ever did it to him. I never saw anybody test him. He always used the bencher. Okay, here's another. I'm going to say some more stories, and things will just come out as we do it. And I also want to show that if you're not there for the whole thing, you really have no idea what's going on. So for that, I'll just say, I used to learn with him every Sunday, and learning with him, it's the only time I ever learned where it was a true workout. It was a workout, and it was unbelievable. Because the thing is that usually when you learn with someone, so either it's a geschmack learning session and your brain is on, or it could be your brain is off and you're just not thinking. Okay, that could be. So, or it could just be some other possibility. But no matter what that possibility is, the only one where you come out getting a workout is one of them, is where the brain is on. So it's like if someone goes to lift weights, you have to actually be lifting the weights to get the workout. If for some day you don't have the muscles to lift the weights, you're going to walk out of there not feeling like you lifted weights. With Rabbi Herber, my mind was always on. That somehow he created that maybe from the excessive therefores and the constant questions, and you really had to be on the ball. And so that's number one. And it was a workout, which even produced, I would say, which even produced close to almost like a runner's high. There really was a workout when you're learning with him. And it was a scary thing also, because before you would walk in, it was what's going to happen today? Let's just get through this, and he's going to ask me about Tosfos, and at some point I'm going to feel stupid, and then, okay, so here's one example. One day I come in, and we go through the therefores. Now, the therefores with Rabbi Herber, it's been many years, so I don't remember if it's just the word therefore, or if there is another word that comes after therefore, but it would generally be something revolving around a Rashi or a Tosfos, and he would say, so what's Tosfos asking? Something like that. So I would say, what's Tosfos' answer? I would say Tosfos' answer. He's like, you think that's what Tosfos is answering? And I'll say, yeah. And why do you think that's what Tosfos is answering? Okay, so I'll say why I think that's what... Okay, so now does that make any sense to you? Be like, yeah. Now how does that make sense? Okay, what was Tosfos' question? I'll say Tosfos' question. Okay, fine, that's his question. Okay, now here's his answer. Now at that point I realized actually it's starting to not make any sense. Okay, so now but it still seems like it makes sense. Okay, so let's hear the answer. Think of the answer. But the answer has to somehow answer the original question. So that's where the therefores start. Okay, good. Therefore, okay, and therefore this and that, and okay, therefore, and somehow eventually I have to get back to what the original question is. Now here's the thing. At the therefores, they go on, or whatever the word was, it can go on for a long time. And to someone, and I was a child. I was maybe 11 years old. And in this particular story, so we have Rabbi Greenblatt, who was the Rav. Now, it looked like there was nobody in the shul, but apparently Rabbi Greenblatt was there in his office. And Rabbi Greenblatt came out in the middle, and he's like, Chaim, Yosef, have some rachmanis. He's only a child. Okay, so he's being a very good Rav and being observant of torture, of possible torture that's going on amongst the congregants. Perhaps there's a child being tortured, and he wants to make sure this child, which was me, grows up to love learning. So he's perhaps thinking, how in the world is this kid ever going to love learning if he comes here every Sunday to get tortured with the therefores? But the only thing is that that's only if you see a small segment of it. Because each session of learning with him, you had the therefores, or whatever the word was, and things kind of felt like they're getting more hopeless. But then there would always be somehow there would be this climax where this humor would it would be some type of humor that would take over, where he would be laughing. It would just get so out of hand, but I can't. It's been so many years I can't think of an example right now. But the point is that there always was a good ending, and it never was a torturous experience. It was always a very geschmack experience, and he would point out, that's geschmack. I think he used the word geschmack, if it's been many years, but that's the geschmack of Torah. So you were to someone who just walked in for 5 minutes, you just witnessed the same thing you witness if you walk into a workout room and you watch someone lifting weights. They're being tortured. Why are they torturing themselves? But if you look at the whole picture, when they leave the room, they feel good about themselves. Not only that, they come back the next day and they pay the place a membership to come into the place. They're paying them. So it's the same thing over here. So there's a certain type of learning, and and a love for Torah that he was able to transmit that no other Rebbe was able to transmit. And if you just heard that example, it's easy to hear why. It's because that is unique. To transmit a love in that way, that's unique, because he used no shtick at all. There's no shtick at all, no yeshivish shtick. It was all pure learning, just Tosfos' answer. And somehow it was almost like, I wish I had a better example of the humor, but that always came in, and it was an enjoyable experience. And there's many people who used to pay him to learn with them. In fact, the niche that he would attract was a certain niche that a lot of times did not have the yeshiva background. And for sure, the reason they're coming to him is because this is their Rebbe, this is who they love learning from the most. So learning was an enjoyable experience with a midas hadin. It was an enjoyable experience with accuracy, and it was with no shtick, but it still ended up being enjoyable. He was supportive of other areas of avodas Hashem, especially exercise, kibud av, with me. If I went to help my father out afterwards in the the business, and he'd ask where I'm going, or if I was going to take a tennis lesson afterwards, he would say "Good, that's beautiful." He would say beautiful, and the way when you have a midas hadin person who says beautiful with a softness, it has more of a roisham. It has a real hargasha salev to it. A lot more. That's something that you would have to maybe see it in action, or maybe I could, later on, if I'm able to get into it, can give a good example of it. But it's something that is more impressionable than that's the type. It's a unique instrument that makes a difference in many people's lives. that's essential, at that time, essential on the Epstein Hebrew Academy team. Now, the example I gave was actually going on at the Agudah, was not in the Epstein Hebrew Academy. But he was very well respected amongst the other Rebbeim in Epstein Hebrew Academy. I remember Rabbi Pollack, once he listed the two top Talmidei Chachamim in town, and Rabbi Herber was one of them. Rabbi Pollack and Rabbi Herber, every Motzei Shabbos in the winter, both classes, we would come to Epstein to play hockey. So he had the key, they both had the keys. I was in 6th grade. I think Rabbi Pollack brought either 5th grade or 7th grade or both, and we would play against each other. But they both felt that it's very important for our childhood to have fun and to have exercise. There also was some learning, if I remember correctly, during that time. Rabbi Pollack would speak very high praise of Rabbi Herber, and I believe it went the other way around as well. And of course, Rabbi Pollack was a gem also. There was a lot of people that got turned on to learning from Rabbi Pollack's style. Rabbi Pollack was it's not just he had a sense of humor, he was open about the humor, and we have someone here who's crying. But with him, he would invite everyone over to the house on Shabbos. We sung a Gedalia Gumber. He had all, not everybody in the school was Shomer Shabbos, but even those who were not Shomer Shabbos, they would find a place to stay over Shabbos. I know we're now speaking about Rabbi Pollack, but this was part of the orchestra. Is Rabbi Pollack played, I would say there was more of a midas harachim. See, if you only have Rabbi Herber, you only have that midas adin. So for some kids, they might just become traumatized, like what is going on here? Therefore, but when you have both, and you realize that this is Torah, and he's not attacking you. He does the same. This is everyone. There was Yeshiva also. And the place where you got to see this most, when you walk into the Agudah during Yontif, between Mincha and Mariv. So, he said class starts at 9:03 every day, no matter what. Now, it might have been 9 o'clock, but I remember his times not being like the normal time. So, 9:03 is when class started. No matter what. No matter what. It didn't matter whether there's people in the class or not in the class. His teaching starts at 9:03, okay? So, I don't know. Okay, so class started with him reading from a book called The Maggid Speaks. Beautiful stories. He read it with a lot of hargashas leiv, stories about someone who left a talis when he went on vacation, and the talis, you can tell the talis was crying, and there were a lot of great values, Torah-dic values, that he taught by reading these stories. But the story time started at 9:03. Okay? So one morning, I walked in 9:03. I'm usually not there 9:03, but that day I was there 9:03. Nobody's there, but he's well into the story, reading away. Page whatever. Okay, I didn't say anything. I just come in. Then another classmate, David Hallman, he came in, or it might have been someone else, there's nobody here. He's like, we start 9:03. I told you 9:03. He didn't just come to teach Torah. He came and he observed the students over recess and over lunch and observed the midos of the students. There was one time where, I don't remember if it was like a raffle, I don't remember what happened, but davening started every day at 8:30, and if you got there at 8:40, there was some consequence. I don't know what it was. I got there at 8:40. Whatever the consequence was, it was, but I ended up not having to suffer that consequence. I think I ended up getting a prize as well. So someone asked him, they said, Rebbe, I don't understand. He came at 8:40 and he walks out with a prize, and he said Simcha came late, but he davened like a mensch once he got here, and I thought that was deserving of something. So the rules were not black and white. You can tell that there was a lot of feeling that went into the rules that were made. I think that many people in the community know him for his, like my father used to call him the Babe Ruth of the Blot Gemara. And when it came to learning skills and learning the Gemara, he was way, way up there. And he was very exact. We had a vocabulary test every single day. We had a vocabulary test on 13 words of the Gemara, on words that you had to answer exact. Ha, for example. Hey, al. So I remember that word meaning that. And the basically, if he marked it wrong, it's wrong. It doesn't matter what dictionary. The dictionary could show that you're right, but it's still wrong because he marked it wrong. Unless it's a Jastro dictionary. Then he will change it. And that's the way he was over there. And I'm trying, I know there's so many more. It's, what? I don't know. Just wait till 10 o'clock. Yeah. Okay. What? Alright, so what story?
You said that you started.
Oh no, okay. So one time, like I remember we came into class and he got very upset at us. He said that one of the students told their parents that he was sleeping yesterday during a certain speech. One of the parents told him, got upset at him for sleeping, and he said, "I never sleep during." But he looks like he's sleeping.
There was a boy in your class, and then the parents told the boy that they were upset at him.
They were upset at the parents told the teacher that don't go to sleep when people are speaking. They gave most of it to the teacher, Rabbi Herber.
And they were saying that Rabbi Herber was?
Right. And Rabbi Herber told the class that wasn't true. So it looks like he's sleeping, but he's not. One of the things that he taught a lot was Kavod Shabbos. He would ask frequently, what's the holiest day of the year? Most people answer Yom Kippur. He would always say, no, it's Shabbos Kodesh. There's no such thing as Fridays. It's Erev Shabbos Kodesh. And there's no such thing as Saturdays. It's Shabbos Kodesh. I don't know if there's anything as Sunday either. I don't know. And on Shabbos, I think the proof was the fact that there's 7 Aliyahs on Shabbos. There's only 6 Aliyahs on Yom Kippur. Was probably the only Rebbe I had that taught the most number of subjects in Lamudei Kodesh. In Vayishlach, in Chumash, Yehoshua, in Navi, he spoke halacha, he taught halacha, and he taught Hameniach in Gemara. And and I remember by Pesach, he asked every person, do you have your own Kiddush cup? And to anyone who said no, he opened up a couple boxes of the most beautiful Kiddush cups, and he just handed out these beautiful Kiddush cups. But to those that said yes, they didn't get any. Of course, everyone started to change, like, well, actually, I don't really have my own Kiddush. He's like, well, you said you do. So the ones who didn't have a Kiddush cup, they got their own Kiddush cup. He was known for his fans. Everybody knew him for the fan in the back of the Agudah with the do not touch without permission from Rabbi Herber. The classrooms were always very cold with fans going on, and he had like quite a reputation. What? I guess so. And there's probably other stories. Does anyone know of anything about him that... anyways, he felt he had a lot of chashivas for teaching Torah. He felt that's the best thing one could do. But he also, if he wasn't in a position of teaching Torah, he found other ways for parnasa as well. And he wasn't dressed. He didn't dress yeshivish. There is one story I want to say actually that, but he very much was attracted to yeshivish. Just his place was the Agudah. So here's the story. The story goes, there was him and someone else. They traveled someplace. It might have been on the East Coast. This was many years ago, before gas stations were computerized. And they stopped to get gas. About an hour after they got gas at the gas station, he says to the person next to him, he says, "How much was the gas?" So the person says, he says, I don't know. I didn't pay for it. I thought you paid for it. So Rabbi Herber Z, he said, I didn't pay for it. I thought you paid for it. So they were an hour past the gas station, but of course they had to turn around and go back. So this is 3 hours out of the way. At least 2 hours. They go back to the gas station and to pay for the gas. And Rabbi Herber says to the person behind the counter, the gas station, he said, "Tell me the truth. Were you nervous that we weren't going to pay?" I didn't say it over here though. And he said, the person behind the counter said, "I wasn't nervous." He said, "I wasn't nervous for 1 second because I saw your yarmulke. I knew you would come back to pay." So I thought that was a big Kiddush Hashem. Just the fact that, I don't know who was making, there was a lot of people making the Kiddush Hashem there. One other thing I'll add is that Rabbi Herber had a very spiritual part to him, and you could see that from the Shlomo Carlebach stories that we would listen to when we were in 4th grade. Those stories are very spiritual, and he... Yeah, so the stories are very spiritual. He had a great appreciation for them. Then I remember when I was in 4th grade, he asked people is there anything they want from Hashem? Anything they want from Hashem? And I think I said no. He's like, you have everything you want? I said, yeah, I think. Now this is when, so my father was in the hospital in Pittsburgh and very sick. So he's just like, "Don't you want a refuah shlema for your father?" I was like, yeah. He had when his eye popped out. So his mind, I felt like his mind was on others, and he davened for others, and he cared about others, and I know he over the years always encouraged me to go into teaching. Just to say something a little cute, there was one year in Epstein Hebrew Academy when they decided to rent out 6 Flags of Great America. Like, who could believe it? It was an amusement park. It wasn't just rented out by Epstein. I don't know what the story was. It was the end of the year and the weather was horrible. The weather was in the 40s. But we went to 6 Flags with Rabbi Herber. Temperatures were in the 40s. But the water rides were open. We did everything that we wanted to do. It was freezing, but we were amazed when we saw that Rabbi Herber also went on the rides with us. I remember explicitly, him going on the swing ride that went, if it didn't go upside down, it went very close to upside down, and it was just, I believe he knew how to have fun, and he felt it's important for kids to have fun. I think this is part of what made him a very good mechanech. And what's most important to realize is that when a community has a gem, you could also, I think there's a responsibility upon the community as well to polish the gem and keep the gem a gem. And that's what we had in Epstein Hebrew Academy during those years. It's not just Rabbi Herber, it was all of those that provided Rabbi Herber that position. Rabbi Pollack speaking highly of Rabbi Herber, he was given the kavod that kavod HaTorah deserves. And it was a great staff, other Rabbanim as well, but it was a gem that was polished back in the 1990s, and it was a schus to be in Epstein during those years. And I could hear a svara to send your child to Epstein back then based upon sometimes just one Rebbe. And it could be Rabbi Herber, sometimes I could hear it being Rabbi Pollack, and that could be a thing. And Epstein Hebrew Academy was blessed. It was a special merit that I think they were blessed with, to have the presence of Rabbi Herber. One of the things I think we could end off with is, I remember towards the very end of 6th grade, the last day of 6th grade, Rabbi Herber said to us, he said, we're about to go through a summer, and it's very important to be koiveya itim l'Torah. And he said it's important to designate time every single day to learn Gemara. He suggested 1 hour a day. He said if you don't, your mind will become warped. In order to prevent that, a person must learn Gemara each and every day. That's what he said to do. That was over the summer. So he was saying learn Torah, and he was specifically telling us boys, we were in 6th grade, to learn Gemara. And I remember the time being 1 hour. And Gemara teaches a person how to think. So I was thinking that perhaps it would be a good thing to be mekabei'l upon ourselves, le'iloi nishmas Rav Chaim, Rabbi Herber, to be mekabei'l upon ourselves, to make sure each and every day we spend time learning Gemara, to those of us that already are learning Gemara, to increase the Gemara. I think he just said Gemara Rashi, maybe Gemara Rashi Tosfos, but that was something that I remember that he said stark, and that's also something that he lived by. We know that him and Gemara they went together. He loved all of Torah. He taught any Torah you told him to teach. That was a schus to him. He considered it a special schus, and he would teach it. Navi, Chumash. But when it came to Gemara, he maybe never expressed it, but you knew that this is something he truly, truly loved, along with the rest of the Torah. May his neshama have an aliyah. Thank you for listening. The following 6 minutes is reading something that I wrote. Some of it might be repetitive. My relationship with Rabbi Herber Zatzal is from the 1990s. My father paid him to teach me one-to-one for many years. Learning with him was most geschmack. He was able to make Torah geschmack without using any shtick. There was no shtick with him, but humor managed to frequently make it into our sessions. I was a child at the time, but my learning with him continued into my teenage years a little bit. I went away to yeshiva from 9th grade onwards, and that's when my learning with him ended for the most part. But his influence was strong and lived on. His presence was well felt wherever he went, and it always brought out the best in me. I would run into him at the JCC frequently, and he was encouraging through his questions. I loved what Rabbi Greenblatt once called the Herber Greenblatt show. Rabbi Greenblatt was the Rav. He is the Rav of the Shul in St. Louis at the Agudah. The Herber Greenblatt show, this took place on Yontif in between Mincha and Mariv. Rabbi Greenblatt would give a shir. Rabbi Herber would have the appearance of sleeping, but he was, in reality, as everyone knows, He was wide awake, and certainly back then, a genuine milchamta shel Torah would take place. As a child, it was most appreciated. As a yeshiva bachur, it was even more appreciated. This is St. Louis, after all, not Lakewood. I davened generally at Young Israel, and I was super fascinated with these milchamta shel Torah when I came to the Agudah on Yontif. I experienced him as being of the most ehrlich, and the stories I heard about him matched this description. It was a unique ehrlichkeit, a different brand than the norm, but this is what I appreciated most about him. He would read from the Magid Says and taught us valuable lessons. Derech Eretz Kadma L'Torah were frequent words that he said, and Baruch Hashem was the only answer he accepted when he asked you how you were doing. He introduced me to the most spiritual stories when I was in 4th grade, when he started to play Shlomo Carlebach stories. He was the best childhood Rebbe, partly because he was tough, so his messages were so strongly ingrained that they lasted a lifetime. He would say teasingly, "I like to give people a hard time," sometimes, but it would end with humor. The hard time is what caused these precious teachings to take root within us for life. His questions demanded an honesty that I never experienced before with any other Rebbe. His appreciation for the Aramaic dictionary written by Professor Jastrow is a good example of this honesty, and I appreciated this. While others refused to use a Jastrow because of religious reasons, Rabbi Herber used nothing else other than Jastrow. When a person's goal in learning is accuracy to the core, the only dictionary available at that time was Jastrow. Jastrow had hashkafas that were not yeshivish, to say the least. Another Rebbe in the shul, more of a hardcore Lakewood, said he prefers to use only kadosh people and kadosh sources when learning, and therefore the Jastrow dictionary was limited by him. Its use was limited. In fact, all of the Jastrow dictionaries at the Agudah in St. Louis were kept in a pile behind this Rebbe, who sat at the opposite corner from Rabbi Herber. Rabbi Herber frequently sent different messengers to the Rebbe to fetch the Jastrow dictionary. It was a humorous situation. Rabbi Herber had his niche. He had his fan club. I think his greatest Talmud was, well, I won't say his name, but there's a specific person I have in mind who eventually went to Lakewood and became a very big Talmud Chacham. In general, his niche seemed to be more of the Wash U crowd. They respected him a lot, and some even paid him to learn with them. Learning with Rabbi Herber was a workout. It was such a workout that it even seemed to produce a runner's high. I remember once when I was still a child, I was learning Gemara with him. There was a sudden stream of constant therefores. Questions of therefore, and I had to answer all of them. The Agudah seemed empty at that time, but suddenly Rabbi Greenblatt's door to his office flung open, and he walked out of the office and he said, quote, Chaim Yosef, have some rachmanis. He's only a child, Chaim Yosef. End of quote. As for me, I was already at the runner's high point. So I didn't need his rachmanis, but the point is that experiencing, learning with him was different than observing who he learned with. I appreciated him, and I'm so sorry that he's gone. Rabbi Menachem Tendler to all of the Avelim.